A scientist with Trust Insights from Boston, and he's building things with tools. He may, in fact, it's live with us now, build things for tools. If nothing else, this is a glimpse into the future. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Christopher Penn.
All right. Andy was saying that agentic manager is 5 years away. There, Jay. That's an issue. This is agentic manager. We'll get to that. All right. Let's talk about generative AI and some prerequisites and assumptions. One, please don't go into technology assuming that you want to use the technology. That's the worst possible way. Figure out what it is you want to do and then apply technology to it, because otherwise it's like blenders. We're all in on blenders. We got to use blenders, and your boss is like, yeah, but we're surpass. Blenders would be not a satisfying experience unless you have no teeth. Second, prompting. The framework I recommend for most people getting started is what we used to call and that currently call RACE. However, it's changed since we first came out with it 2 years ago. Today, with modern models, you don't have to tell it things. You ask it to figure it out itself. So your first step is you give it a task. Hey, we're going to write a blog post about BAV Mark. Something ridiculous, right? Yeah, so Mo, what role should you take on to do this? You say, here's the overview of what we're trying to do. We're trying to write a blog post that's compelling to senior managers at industrial manufacturing. Give it as much data as you possibly can. We're going to talk about how to do that effectively and very, very quickly. And then ask it to go a work plan. If you follow those steps, you will get dramatically better output from generative AI because you're asking it to think for itself. And with today's models, they can do that. They can sit there and think, okay, here's what I need to do. Here's my plan. I'm going to reflect on this. I'm going to advance myself. The kind of models you should be using are twofold: reasoning models and multimodal models. A reasoning model is one, again, that thinks for itself. Multimodal means it's not just text. It can look at images. It can listen to sound. It can watch videos. The recommended ones for today that I would suggest we use are Gemini 2. Actually, I should choose, and that slide's now out of date now to 2 days ago. Gemini 2.5 Flash Thinking or Gemini 2.5 Advanced from Google. OpenAI's O3, which is their flagship model, which O3 is a really smart model, but it has, speaking of Earth Day, dramatic environmental costs. O3 for a single task uses not energy that to power a household for 3 days. It's a one prompt consumes 3 days worth of a household dinner. For a high intensity task, which is finds a multi-step task, when they were building it, consumes more energy per one set of prompts than a household uses in 18 months. That's how much power it consumes, which is why they're looking to build things like nuclear reactors for it. And Anthropic's Claude Sonnet 3.7 extended thinking. Once again, proving that AI manufacturers don't have any marketing of bugs. For a lot of people, privacy is important. How do you know what model to use? By the way, the slides, the screen recording, the audio and stuff are all going to be available, and pumps we're going to use too will be available after today. Generally speaking, if you are working with sensitive data, you have to use a model that is in your infrastructure. So Google's Gemma 3, for example, or DeepSeek, which you can download and run on your hardware if you have this, $1,000 worth of this. That is the only guaranteed way to make sure data never egresses your net store. I run Google's Gemma 3 on my laptop, and Red done a nice laptop. But there are certain AI tools that could run on your hardware so that your data never leaves. So if you're working with protected information, healthcare information, financial data, stuff like that, run local models. This is the only guaranteed way to make sure that your data stays private. Most of the paid tools, your data is mostly private, which means that companies are not going to use it to train their models. And a human will look at it only if you violate the terms of service. So you say, hey, how do I build a Python? You're going to flag something, and then a human will get what you're prompted. The ones that are yellow allow you to turn off the model training, but obviously humans can still look. And the ones in red pretty much clearly always say, hey, we're using your data. So never, ever, ever use those with anything sensitive or private. Generally speaking, the rule of thumb is this: if you're not paying, your data is the product. Right? You're not paying, the data is the product. This is a big problem for a lot of people in this room because what it means is if your company is not paying for AI tools, your employees are using the free ones. And guess where your data is going? So make sure that you not only have AI governance policies, but you are paying money so that your data is protected. The concept that I want to start off today is the concept called blocks, knowledge blocks. When people use AI, they think of it like a conversation partner. It kind of is, but that's a starting point. And it's kind of level one, the Handy's curriculum. What we want to think about is how do we take AI and think of it like pieces of functions that we can chain together like Lego blocks. So there's 7 major functions that generative AI models do really well. Extraction, take data out of data. Right. Classification, organize by data, helping make sense of it. Summarization, take big data, make it small. Rewriting, take data and turn it into another form of data, from language translation to making a 90s pop song inside of your data. Which, by the way, is a fantastic use case if you ever want to compress a sales prospect and make them a custom song. It sounds weird. Synthesis. Take small data, aggregate it together into big data. The question answering, here's a bunch of data, I have questions about it, please answer both. And then generation, which is make new data. The irony is, we call it generative AI, we use it for generation, is what these tools are really good at. They are actually the worst at generation because they don't have the knowledge they were trained on to make new stuff. So what we can do to overcome that is to provide as much of our own data as possible. And we do this by creating what are called knowledge blocks. Knowledge blocks are just big chunks of data that you hand off to machines, and you can make these in any number of ways. So there's a bunch of deep research tools that you can give a solid prompt to and say, make me some data, and we'll go out and scrape and crawl the web. Perplexity has one called Perplexity Deep Research. Grok has Deeper Search, which is a weird name. OpenAI has Deep Research. Gemini has Deep Research. All of these have relatively limited use. So Perplexity will give you three free a day. I think either 10 or 25 on the pay plan. OpenAI gives you 10 a month on the Plus plan, and it's 100 a month on the $200 a month plan. Grok gives it to you for free, but it's kind of half-assed, which is what I expect out of XAI. And Gemini gives you 25 a day on the paid version. The prompt format that I recommend for doing deep research queries is I jokingly call casino, because one of the things with deep research is that because you have a limited number of uses, you don't want to give it a prompt. You want to give it a detailed prompt up front. So you say, context, what is the ask? And what is it you're doing? Audience, who is the research for? Be very clear. Like, this research is for a CPO. This research is for CMO. Scope is probably the most important here. What is allowed in a research query? So what are your preferred sources? Like, if you're doing medical stuff, for example, health stuff, you definitely don't want Self Magazine in there, or Forms, or other random publications. You want something with DOI numbers, right? DOI numbers are the document object indicators. They are part of any peer review paper. On the other hand, if you're doing social media research, yeah, you want randos from Twitter. That's totally fine. So what's not allowed? What is the time frame of the research you want as the sources? When I say, I only want sources from before, after a certain date. Let's say some lunatic takes over the research institution and starts publishing frat research. You might say, okay, I want data from this institution only from before this date, because after this date, you can't trust anybody who is it. I don't know how that will possibly happen. What is the intent? How's the research going to be used downstream? What will people do with it? Because the underlying model for all deep research tools are reasoning models. Narrator, what role do you want the AI to play? Is it a researcher? Is it a narrator? Is it a storyteller? Is it a poet? Whatever. That conditions some of the output. And then the outcome. What are the expected outputs? Let me show you an example of a deep research prompt here. Let's pull up research, company deep research. So this is your context, build comprehensive company profile, strategic analysis. Is this company put bigger, right? It's an auction house. Focus on our market, this overall strategy. Who's the audits, the leadership of the target company, especially the C-suite. The time frame. Here's after January 20 from 1/2023. Preferred sources, market research, company profiles, DFB, target company website. He's on stuff with Disalab, social media commentary. Priority of sources, use all sources available. What is the intent? Create comprehensive market-based report used by the manager to gain a strategic understanding of target company's market position. Narrator, market research expert, outcome. These are the 12 things that the research report has to have in order for us to consider a success. So, yeah.
That's a Christopher Penn prompt.
It's such a seamless thought, Rob.
I'd never written a prompt that. I thought my prompts were detailed. Write that prompt.
No, I wrote that this morning. So, what you get, I actually ran this, all right, I ran this to Orbit Media. This is why Andy has an event, free consulting. We can see here's Orbit Media, the identification of customer segments, detailed list of services provided. We have inferred profile of the ideal customer, so we're building an ideal customer profile. The tool did a decent job of this. Analysis of those customer priorities, why they would hire Andy. Identification of main competitors, who are the competitors he competes with in the market in Chicago and broader. Analysis of competitive advantages. What is Orbit Media good at that others are not? Audits of coin. What are others good at that Orbit Media might not be? Do a SWOT analysis, which, by the way, you need to specify how you want your SWOT analysis done. A lot of people do it completely wrong and make them too broad. So here's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for Andy. Core 5 forces, which explores the broad landscape of the business. Better new entrants, substitute products, bargaining power of buyers, bargaining power of suppliers. Test your rivalry among those competitors is the biggest problem, of course. ECG growth matrix, breaking down the products by whether they are stars, question marks, cash cows, or dogs. This is how that market segment is growing, and then how much of the market share the company has. The strategic recommendations for what Orbit Media should do, and then a quarterly work plan to achieve those goals. So
You didn't ask for those things specifically.
I did. Oh, you did. You asked. No, it's all part of the front. Yeah, it's all part of the prompt. It's all so it our accomplish. Deep research tools take 15, 20 minutes to work. So they're good for you to run and get a sandwich. But this is a knowledge block. What comes out is a big chunk of information, and you can use it as is. There's nothing wrong with it. Like that document alone would probably be useful to Andy. I would assume it will be. But that's just the starting point for a lot of our work. So the casino-style prompt allows us to get really solid results out of deep research. Think of these tools as junior employees. The easy way to think about it, how would you delegate a research project to a junior employee? You would not just say, hey, go do the strategic analysis of Orbit Media. You would never say that to the intern, right? Because you're going to get back crap. You would say, here is the exact step-by-step things I expect you to present in a report to me. And you are detailed, you are clear, you're specific, you run a lot of data, and as a result, it comes back with really good results. These are the world's smartest, most forgetful interns. If you prompt them well, they will know what to do. You also want to do things like voice memos on your phone. Your voice memo app, Android has one, Apple has one, they all do transcripts. You want to take some time, perhaps a beverage of your choice, and talk about how do you do things? What is your secret sauce? You personally, your company, your team. So I spent some time, about 7 minutes, foaming with Malcolm up how Trust Insights does our marketing. Here are the things that we do. Here are the things that we don't do, because that's important background information that I'm going to be using it for marketing. I want to say, take some things off the table. For example, we don't do paid ads, and we just have never gotten good results. So every time we work with a generative AI tool, I use this block so that I don't have to tell it over and over again, oh yeah, we don't do paid ads, please stop recommending it. How do you do analysis? When you're doing data analysis, how do you think about analytics? How do you think about your data? What questions do you ask of your data? You want to write this down. For example, how many people love Google Analytics 4? Put your hand down your eye. No one loves it. But you have particular takes on its data and what it means. For example, Google says direct traffic is traffic to something will type your URL into a search bar. Most of the time it's because somebody screwed something up in tracking. So you want to write that down. You want to say that, hey, when you see direct traffic in our analytics, it actually means this. When you see affiliates in our traffic, it means this, because you know your company, you know your marketing, and you know how you think about your data. You want us to take the time to write this down. By the way, you probably need a shared op library in your organization and a shared knowledge base. All the people who studied knowledge management back in the 90s are like, yes, my degree is finally useful 30 years later. But all this information is useful not just for humans, but for the machines themselves. And we need to have it documented somewhere. Who is your customer? Build an ideal customer profile of exactly who your customer is, what they want. Goals, motivations, needs, pain points, demographics, psychographics, firmographics, technographics, name it. B2B, B2C doesn't matter. If you don't know that, you have bigger problems. However, if you need a scratch version of this to be done very quickly, you can have generative AI create one based on real data. So let me pull up Rules Gemini. I'm going to use Gemini's AI Studio because I like it better. I could turn the safeties off, which may or may not be something you want to do. And let's take a B2B profile. I'm going to put a system prompt in here to generate a B2B profile. I'm going to take the profile outline of what I expect it to create and say, create an ideal customer profile from these LinkedIn profiles. Format the response in this structure. I'm going to paste that structure in, and then I'm going to go and grab 5 LinkedIn profiles I downloaded yesterday because I was doing this with a friend. And by the way, with LinkedIn profile, all you need to do with LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn, find somebody. Let's do it handy. Hit the more button. Let's save as PDF. Yep. What?
Oh, does it get the whole thing?
Yeah.
My basic is great, God's indeed.
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then what it will do is it will think through, based on the language and the content of people's profiles, of their positions they hold, their titles for companies they've worked at, the education, the charities that they work with, all that stuff. What an ideal customer profile synthesis looks like for this particular group. So this is for chief people officers, HR people. So there's our demographics, our psychographics, not detailed profiles, but for hobbies, firmographics, the kinds of companies they work for, the needs that they have, the pain points, the goals, the motivations, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. Building an ideal customer profile can take 2 minutes if you know who your ideal customers are. So who are those people on the LinkedIn, the 5, the 10, 15 people that you know you want as customers or are your best customers right now? Put it in here, have generative AI assemble it, and now you've got a knowledge block of your identity. We'll save an enormous amount of time. So some of the knowledge blocks you want to have about us, how you do your marketing, reports and data that you have, your ideal customer profile. Maybe you have a strategic plan and you don't have AI make one, and then some kind of framework. Here's what AI should not do. Transformer modeling is what powers generative AI are capable of doing math, because fundamentally they are trying to predict the next most logical thing in a sequence. That is not how math works. If I say you 2 plus 3, you know the answer computation is high. If I hand that to a language model, a primitive language model, it will say 4, because 4 comes after 3 an awful lot. So we're going to predict the answer is 4. That's wrong, but math is a symbolic language. It is not a literal human language, so transformers can't do that. However, there are tools that will help you do the math by writing codes. So Google Colab is an example of one. Let me pull up Google Colab here. So let's start a new notebook here. So Colab is free from Google, and it has this thing called Analyze Files with Gemini. I'm going to give it, let me give it a prompt here for analyzing my website. And I'm going to give it a raw, ugly export from Google Search Console. So Google Search Console, one thing you can do is you can download all your data. So there's 40 megabytes of data in this great big gigantic file that I don't want to read, but that might be something useful in it. So You give it, and by the way, because it's powered by Gemini, you have to give it the same very detailed prompt. In my prompt, I like how to start executing plan law, follow it, crosses. I said, you're an SEO and digital marketing expert. Today, you're going to examine Google Search Console data for this website, from our website. The data analysis you'll be performing includes top pages, top queries, propensity of uplift on clicks versus other metrics, topics about AI versus non-AI topics, especially generative AI. I want to know, is my AI content doing better in search results than my non-AI content? Content gaps identified by queries, Google queries, that have high impressions but low or no clicks, right? So I'm showing up for stuff, but there's no content to match it. And then do a growth matrix. Your dogs, low clicks, low impressions, that's content that's not going to perform. Your stars, high clicks, high impressions, that's your rock star content. Your questions, low clicks but high impressions, there might be something there. And then cash cows, high clicks, low impressions, they're just giving good traffic, high quality traffic. What it does is it goes and writes all the Python code that it needs to do this analysis. Because it can't do math, but it can write code because code is a language. It will analyze the data, and it shows you the code it's writing along the way if you want to fact check it to make sure it's not completely lying to you. And then what you end up with is a really nice analysis. And by the way, this Python code, when it's done, is reusable. You can just say, here's this month's file, drop it in, rerun the same analysis, and get good results. Let's see. I'm going to go back to this version here because it's already baked. It's like a cooking show. And you can see it's done things like understanding my distributions, a correlation matrix of the performance. And then we get into the good stuff, which is the data analysis. What happened with my content? So feature engineering, the data visualization. And then we get into a nice summary. It says, here's what works for you. There's some content performance. Your non-AI content significantly outperforms AI content across click-through rate. So that. Now, granted, these are not great codes to begin with, but here are some specific content gaps. You can go back and dig through icon code and the results say, these are the things you need to create more content about. Your stars, your dogs, what topics you might need to create more content about. I don't have to write this code. Machine does it for me. I just have to have really good, clear questions for it to do the math for me. It is, by the way, free. You can use a paid version of Colab. The paid version does not train on your data. So let's look at some additional examples. One of the things that you can do is I said multimodal, these tools can see, they can understand charts and graphs. How many people have marketing dashboards and a variety of different marketing technology tools? Yeah. How many of you know what all those dashboards mean? No. In Google Analytics alone, there's something like 210 different screens of dashboards, of which like 4 are useful. But you're not sure whether they're useful or not. And then you have your sales CRM, you have your marketing automation system, you have your email marketing system, you have a social media marketing system, you have so on and so forth. You could make yourself weep and just process all the data yourself. Or you can go into a tool like Gemini. And I personally use Gemini. You do not have to. Again, any of the 3 foundation models that I mentioned are perfectly fun. So I might take things like my Facebook data from Agorapulse. I might take some SEMrush data. I might take my Google Analytics data, some YouTube data. I might dump it all into Gemini. And let me pull up my analytics work plan here. And we're going to say, you're a marketing analytics expert. Here is my data. I want you to look at it and summarize it. Don't penalize it. One of the things about vision models and other multimodal models is that you have to fact check what they're seeing. Back in the early days of computer vision, this university trained a classifier to understand the difference between a dog or a wolf, and they had great results in a lab. When they tried to deploy it in production, it fell apart. No one could figure out why. When they decomposed the model to figure it out, what they found out was the model was classifying based on whether there was snow in the picture. Now, because a lot of the wolf pictures had snow, all the dog pictures did not. So if you don't ask the model, what do you see, it could be seeing the wrong things. So it will spit out, hey, here's what I see. I'm using the Savory Oatmeal Company as an example. This is a company that makes bacon, chicken, and steak flavored oatmeal. And then you look at, you fact check it, say, did you actually see the data correctly or not? In this case, it usually does. Once you have all that information, you can start doing processing. You can say, I want you to use, in this case, we have a reporting frame that I like to use, because a lot of the times with reporting, we spend so much time on what happens on the backing the truck up and pouring data all over somebody's desk, but we never ask, so what? Why do you care about this data? And now what do we do about it? So we have this framework that I use for clients called SYNC, Summary, Analysis, Insights, Next Steps, Time. Generally speaking, when we do reporting, we spend 95% of our time here and then cast on the rest. Was in reality, we should be spending like 10% of our time here, 20% of our time here, and then 70% of the times in these parts, because that's what stakeholders actually care about. Because generative AI allows us to process and analyze, as long as we hand process data to it, we don't have to invest any time in those front parts. We can instead say, here is what I want you to do, and then here is an explanation. I can just drop that PDF right in, or a text version of it, and say, I want you to follow this framework and build me a report. And so I would say, this is, we're going to make a report for our key stakeholder, James Avena, the CEO of Savory Oatmeal. James needs to know what's going on and why, and what decisions he needs to make to help the company boost growth. So add Google Analytics and YouTube and Reddit and Facebook and stuff. All that information that been pre-processed by all of your dashboards is in here, been summarized, and now we say, let's build a report. This is how you get to building useful analysis. Because you could sit here and say, okay, I could spend 8 hours pouring through every single dashboard, or I can have a machine summarize it and fact check it, and then have it build an analysis format. I open the thinking box here. You can see as it's thinking it aloud, every step that it's taking along the way. So here's what I see, here's how I'd actually think about this, why this might matter to somebody. And we get a nice, tidy report. Key decisions. Address the engagement retention decline across platforms. Optimize platform focus. Reducing Facebook efforts. Urgently implement conversion tracking to measure business impact. That's what the CEO cares about. I can provide it to him in 1 minute instead of sitting here for 8 hours struggling. And if he says, hey, why? Well, there's an analysis, right? Here's what happened. Here's why it happened. You have a content audit mismatch. You have superficial consumption. You do have some YouTube. Facebook is clearly not working for you. And oh, by the way, your analytics are broken. Next steps, what do we do about it? And then when do we do about it? Here's the work plan. So when the CTO says, when's this going to be done? You say, it's going to be done in the next 4 weeks. This is the plan. And so let's continue on with what happens next. So what happens next after that? You say, you're a management consultant. We're going to say, I'm going to give you our competitors. I'm going to give you some information about us, who we are, who our ideal customer is, and our evil competitor, a company called Oatmeat. And also what we do with our marketing.
This is synthetic data. He's making these things easy data to make big companies, and it's not a real company.
Unfortunately, it's not a real company. Well, so here's the thing. I was actually at a food and beverage conference last week. Like, if you ever do want to build this company, this supplier does oats, this supplier does plantain. Could do that. By providing it with information that you got from your deep research, right, about you and your competitor, that you got from your basic knowledge, your basic business school stuff, you can say, I want to build this analysis of savory oatmeal versus oat meat. And like we saw earlier with Andy's, you have a very good understanding of the market position. After it finishes doing that, our next step in the process could be build 10 marketing ideas on unpaid channels that savory oatmeal can use. Is SWOT analysis. I want to come up with strategy that will mitigate Oatmeat's strengths, take advantage of their weaknesses, and I need this as a strategic marketing plan by quarter for calendar year 2026. And so because we have a SWOT analysis done now, plus all of our background information, it can come up with a great set of marketing ideas. By the way, you can make this as unhinged as you want. You can actually tell it, hey, please have 2 martinis, and then there'll be the marketing, and you'll get substantiated results.
What is the training data for a marketing plan that was built on tumors?
Every marketer, please. True. We're not wrong about that. And then once it's done that part, so here comes our marketing plan, preparation phase, what assets we need to create, so on and so forth. Here are quarter goals for Q1. Why are we doing it? What are the strategic initiatives? Real ingredients, real taste, meet the family, our story campaign, Q2, Q3, so on and so forth, Q4. From this strategic plan, which is a pretty decent plan if you're a savory oatmeal company, you might say, let's build a quarter by quarter work plan that we can break out so we can hand it dealt to humans who are working on our team. Again, I could spend all, a 2-day strategic retreat doing this, or I could have generative AI doing it. Now, the disadvantage is you don't get the pre-vacation 2-day strategic retreat, which many company sectors enjoy doing. And so it's going to think through, it's going to do a bit of scoring on its own ideas and say, here is exactly what you need to do. Goal by channel, by tactic, etc. And then you hand this off to your social media manager, your YouTube manager, the marketing agency, your email company, and say, this is what we need to do. Let's reverse engineer it from all the data we provided it. That is how you turn all this data into something useful. Generative AI can just tackle it and build a point. Now, one thing that people have been asking about, what about forecasting? Can we use these tools to predict? They're predictive tools. And the answer is, we live in a time where everything is black swans, and everything is unprecedented, right? We are at the highest volatility levels ever in the marketplace, and we have all sorts of entertainment sound. And because we don't know what's going on, we can't forecast, because all predictive analytics is based on past data, right? The rule of thumb is for every 3 years, every 3 periods, you have back days and bring forward 1 period. We can't predict anything. We don't know what's happening day to day. And you don't know whether a washing machine is going to cost you $900 or $2,100 on any given day. And as a result, our ability to use forecasting, not so good. and not going to get better. So the best thing you can do in lieu of forecasting is to use generative AI tools to rapidly process your data as often as you can. Here's where this is going. Let me show you this. This is using a coding tool called Climb. Those same files that we process manually, I said just read the work plan and execute the work plan. And what this coding tool does is it says, okay, I'll read all this stuff. I'm going to ingest it. I'm going to send it back and forth to generative AI, and we're going to build everything that we just did manually. It just does automatically. And so, span of about 11 or 12 minutes, all the documents that we created just now, it will put on your desktop, and you're ready to go. So if you have fresh data, you can just rerun this whenever you want. Do it at the monthly meetings, or your board reviews, do it a weekly staff meeting. Have generative AI process your data as rapidly as possible. That's how you stay out of trouble. And as I started with, eventually you'll get to the point where you're going to build these agents like Andy was talking about. Except instead of 5 years, it's going to be today. This is a tool, one of many, called N8Pen, stupidly named, as many things in AI are. And is an automation goal that allows you to tie together different pieces from wherever and put generative AI in it. So this is a thing I use to process my podcast every week. I take the Firefly's transcript, which is down on disk as PDF. I take that transcript, I have that system prompt that we've spent time refining. When this runs, it cleans up the transcript first, get rid of all the weird stuff that we say, writes out to HTML. If I wanted to, I could attach a connector here and put this right to my WordPress website and just say publish my post from this transcript. I then send the transcript Remember Andy was saying how you layer prompts together to make a YouTube description. Here are the tags that I need for YouTube. Here's the description for my video. Again, I write that to dist because I do like to fact check it, but there's no reason why you can't go straight to YouTube and update an itemized video, because I want to update my video with this new stuff. You can post the video from here too as well. And then
It does that. Oh, exactly.
you provide the credentials in the yes. So, you can log straight in. And then one of the things that I like to do, my CEO, Katie, and I do this podcast together. And as much as I can, I try to make sure that she is the face of the company podcast. It's because she needs as much airtime as I do. And so I have the AI model look up the transcript of the timestamps and say, find the smartest thing Katie said in less than 60 seconds, so I can hand it up to a tool like Oaks Clips or Canva or Adobe Express, and it will find that out, and then it will, again, tell me, and if I wanted to, I could wire that to something else. So this workflow, when I press go, just does its thing, and I don't have to press go. I click from the initiations. I could say, just do it on a piece some time. I could say, when you see new data from any one of these hundreds of systems, start processing. I go hook to my Google Drive. And then when I drop a Firefly's PDF in Google Drive, that kicks off the sequence. Here's another example. Leave it on saving. I publish my newsletter each week on Sundays. And I take the raw content. I say, hand it to Google's Gemini and translate to all these languages. And so it'll initiate 4 flows and translate them with explanations for the translations into each of these languages. So now I can create my content in as many languages as I want.
Yeah. So this works with any model.
Yeah, it even works with local models.
And you give it the prods.
You get prompts,
And it just
goes, just does its thing. So I press this, and this takes about 7 minutes to run. So I put this in, I go grab a cup of coffee, and when I come back, on my disk are a list of all the different translations that it's done. See where's, I don't have them running for this one, for that I have. Here's the example of the Ponfest on where it said, hey, here's all the pieces from your YouTube video. With these tools, let me start a new workflow here. With some new flow. Well, let's do a manual trigger just for example. Let's give it a
what? You're just gonna build like
well, yeah. So with model, you can choose from these providers. Anthropic is in there, DeepSeek is in there, Google, Grok, the hosting company, not XAI. And one that's really important, truly really important, one is OpenRouter, which is a service that automatically switches AI providers based on what your needs are. And then Ollama. So Ollama, which is strangely named, is local AI that runs on your ear. And so there are some processes that I don't feel like spending money, because every time you hit the API, it's costing you money. There's some things I don't feel like spending money on. An example is I have this thing called an AI newsletter that we're currently piloting. What we do is we ingest news articles from the web, several hundred a day. And then I have a prompt that says, here is my ideal customer. Here's the article and the article text, which we grabbed using iPod. Tell me how well this article aligns with my ideal workout. Do they get anything out of it? Does it help them or not? And so after it does its analysis, it makes my hands spin for like 15 minutes as it processes all the articles. But Earth Day, it's only used the power of my laptop and not burning down a rainforest on some data center. And when it's done, it gives you top 10 articles. And then this just goes straight into a Substack. It goes out to people who want to say what happened AI this week that I need to care about. So what? Why you should care? This article provides critical insight how to monetize AI-powered products effectively. Why you should care. Understanding why marketers are fully embracing generative AI. The Gemma 3 model just does all the writing. It summarizes really, really well. And this costs me the power of electricity. That's it. So this is where you get to when Andy's talking level 5, level 6. You now have systems that do the work for you once, and it happens in a flow. It's a 3-part flow. In the beginning, it's the same as any product market fit. Done by you, done for you, done with. Done by you are the machine. You're the natural intelligence, the flesh and blood intelligence, copy pasting in and out of every possible tool. Then you get to automations, things like NA Penn and stuff, where you have proven that the prompts work. You've tested them. You know they work. You now start putting them in tools and systems so that you can run these things on schedules or when conditions change. And then eventually you get to the agent itself, where it is a self-contained system. It's a self-driving app. And that's what agents are. They're self-driving apps. If you do that, then your journey starts here, because you have to make sure it works. You cannot go straight to building agents. You will have a nightmare of a time because machines don't know what you want them to do. And by the way, level 7, tools like NAN, you can export configuration files. So when I go into a system like NAN, what I get out of it is JSON. Guess what can write JSON files? Generative AI. So you can now get to a point where a machine can build its own agents. So it's very inception. The agent building its own agents to increase its capabilities. I've seen some workflows that are 300 nodes long and go from a concept to deployed 2,000 to 3,000 Google ads deployed and market and budgeted and bid using entire agents. And the employee just shows up, presses go, and gets a cup of coffee, and then 25 minutes later, 3,000 ads are in market for their client. They had to do almost nothing after proving all the prompts and things work. Okay, so that's where this stuff is going. It's going to the point where the tools will be able to build themselves. We, as specialists, have to figure out how to instruct them, how to be good managers, how to delegate, how to think things through. So with that, we have about 12 minutes of time left. So thank you, Andy, and the Org Media team for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and we have some time for questions. Questions, comments, dad jokes? Yes.
I think something came out recently that
Google is detecting AI-generated content. Curious how you or Andy or others are kind of combating that and playing around with, like, obviously something like what's your career with Substack, you ask an important for very generated things, even if Pullman part of your possible with AI-generated, I'm not plenty.
Okay, so there's two things. Google can detect its own content, right? It is perfectly capable of that. There's a technology built into Gemini called Synth ID, which it is very, it does a decent job. Other tools on the market do an absolutely horrifyingly bad job of detecting AI, right? This version of the model said this thing is probably mostly human. This is Declaration of Independence. I don't care how smart your AI is, I detect on machine. This should be 100% human. There is absolutely no way any of this text was ever AI generated. These tools suck. All of them. All forms of content detection suck badly. They are worthless. Do not spend your money on them. Can Google detect naive use of AI? Yes, but so can you, because it's like, hey, if this is a blog post about media marketing, and it's so vapid and useless, it's pretty clear it was written by a machine. If you provide really great data, no, it can't tell any more than you can tell whether a case is AI generated or not. Google's standard in their machine learning algorithms is, did we get engagement metrics within the search engine? Did someone click on this and pogo stick that right away? Okay, they didn't find value in that. That's what they can detect. Now, obviously, they can spy on you with Chrome and Android and all that stuff too. But fundamentally, they're not capable of analyzing a piece of text at scale, because the compute power to do that is so expensive that they would literally burn all the remaining GPUs they have just trying to detect content. And the algorithms that are out there that analyze detectors are really badly trained. There is a way to detect AI content, but it is not whether it is AI or not. It is which model built the content. Because every model has a footprint of its own. Every model has some training data set. So you can tell when something is generated by Claude 3.7 or 3.5. The downside is you have to train a model to detect every model. And there are 1.6 million models. Good luck training a model. Even on the top 20, you will burn your entire compute bank just trying to figure that out. Other questions? Yes, but here and then there.
So when you get up the term, the say that how do you test for accuracy within people at AI model?
So there's a couple different ways you can do this. Manually, you put in things that you know, and then you have it do an assessment, and you read it. One of the things that is very challenging, Professor Ethan Molyneux work says, is as AI models get smarter, they make smarter mistakes. So you need to have more subject matter expertise. So I would strongly caution against having a model naively do something that you know nothing about, because you won't know if it's wrong or not. Right? We're beyond, hey, that person has 10 fingers on one hand, and now into very subtle things like the lighting on that reflection is not correct, right? There's something slightly off. The second is automated. So there are tools out there. There's one that is called Your Bench, which is by Hugging Face. This has an extremely high barrier to entry for deployment because you need to be able to code. But you give it your data and documents, it writes test prompts, and then it sends out those prompts to a series of models at your cost because it's using the APIs. And then it compares the responses to the known good data. It says this model did a good job with this particular set of tasks. Like I said, it's a very heavy technical lift to get it running, but it does work really, really well. And it's good for benchmarking for your specific use case, because you can say, I don't care if you can code or not. I don't code. I need you to write blog posts that are not incoherent. See you have a question?
It's clear that data input is really essential to what you've just demonstrated. What do you do for businesses who have not a lot of data? Like, they just installed GNCore yesterday. Their LinkedIn profiles suck. They rely on word of mouth to get their seniors. How do you make this function?
You buy them beer pizza. On a conference call, you ask them, talk to them for however long you need to say, well, what exactly does your business do? Like, who is your customer? And you may say, like, if you have no idea who your customer is, we can't work with you because you're an idiot. Okay?
Or you need more information.
If a company has no idea who its customers, who it wants the customers to be, they've got bigger problems than AI. It's not like my company's not going to function because I had no idea what's going on. However, there is a lot of implicit knowledge within a company. The best thing you can do is get people on conference calls, get their permission, record transcripts of everything. One of my favorite things to do is to take a tool like Google's Notebook LM and then feed it transcripts, piles and piles and piles of transcripts from every meeting, and then you can say what other common themes keep coming up. I did this recently, so we record all of our staff meetings, and we put them in month by month into Notebook LM. It was like, what did we talk about this month? What ideas do we come up with in meetings that do we take advantage of? Making a list of everything that we talked about. What did we forget to do? That was, we told a client we would do. If it's in the transcripts, the models can fish it out for us, and then you can use it really post-op chat. Certainly then, there's one I'm going to...
Yeah, but what tool do you recommend for sharing prompt libraries within a larger company, medium company?
Anything that can share text files, OneNote, Evernote, Google Key, Stock Consentable, Hell, SharePoint. But whatever you've done, it's that other people can access. They're just type text files.
So with agents, where do you see that coming as far as like working with agencies? Because essentially they're doing a lot of that work.
What that? Answer the honest answer. The honest answer. Agencies are screwed. Because you hire an agency for two reasons. You need more brains or you need more hands. Right? There's skills we don't have, so we hire an agency, bring in listers. Or we just don't have the bandwidth, so we need more hands. AI does both. AI brings better brains, and it brings more hands. If you are a content agency, you're doubly suing because machines can generate way better content. If you go into Google's Vertex, for example, and you look at what Vertex is able to create, I go into Media Studio here. Where's my? Yeah, that's a conference room filled with applauding business. Choose 16:8. Tools like VO2 create cinematic quality, good quality content at a fraction of the cost of real human beings. If you're doing things like making 30-second spots and stuff, you don't need an agency for that. I mean, You use a tool of diffusion of Suno to the backing. You can use 11 Labs to do the voiceover with your voice. So agencies that are trying to do what they've always done are going to get steamrolled. There's no polite way to say it. What agencies need to do is figure out three things. Number one, what do you do or provide that machines cannot? Can you build a functioning community for a client, right? By a Slack group, a Discord server, something like that with a real people. Two, what content can you create that, yes, machines can do it, but the operator never thinks about it, right? So everyone and their cousin can make video, right? Let's see if I can find my press release. Yeah, my interactive press material. So about for April Fool's Day, I made this interactive tool, right? So how much corporate bullshit do I want? Let's keep adding the slider, and you can say longer, right? 700 words of corporate bullshit. When all you really need, head and get a new course. That's it. Would your agency think to do something like this that's creative, right? So you have actual creativity. And the third thing is brands in general have gotten flattened over the last 5 years in terms of reliable reach on any platform, right? No one really wants to hear from brands, for the most part, with a few exceptions. We do want to hear from people. We want to hear from people a lot. And so how do you help a brand or even your own agency put your personalities, your human beings, front and center? Because that's very hard to copy. Right? So when you go on LinkedIn, you see stuff from Andy, and you see stuff from me. We see stuff from Jessica. You see stuff from Nancy. You see stuff all over the place, but they're people. You don't see you don't see customer insights. You don't see the companies because no one cares. You know whatever companies publish is 90% of the time corporate bullshit anyway. But a person might have something useful. So the things that AI can't do well or that the operators don't think to do are where agencies can survive. But if you're saying, how do you use AI to make more blog posts? The world doesn't need another blog post, so no one's going to pay for it. Other questions? You let me.
Just real quick, you thrown out a lot of really great resources. Is there going to be any sort of like one major that can you list?
I can give you the recording and you can have Generative and go. Yes.
Okay, I'm always afraid to ask this, and I want Donna's answer. What is your advice for companies that have not embraced paid AI with their marketing work?
Involve legal and IT to say we are leaking data like crazy, and if you don't want this risk to continue, and it will, you need to pay up. It is the same as these. Remember back in 2007, everyone started bringing these things to work. And you're like, so we need a corporate policy. No devices at work. How well did that work? Right? Instead, it said, okay, we're going to use MDM. We're going to use device management. We're going to give you a device. And we're going to pay for it because otherwise you keep using corporate email on your phone and we don't want that. And so companies have figured this out in the past is a cost of doing business. And if companies don't do that, they get what they get, which is massive data leakage. Yes?
Chris, what do you like for image creation?
Depends. Depends on what the process is. So for image creation, in general, ChatGPT's new model is fantastic. However, it does burn down rainforest every time. For local stuff, there's a model called Flux One from Black Forest Labs that you can run on your laptop. It's slow. It takes 3 minutes to generate an image, but it is completely private. The model is uncensored. Take it up to be for what you will. And it allows you to tweak on that scale. You can give it in batch queue, like 500 images. It go to bed. The next morning, you've got a portfolio stuff to look.
How about infographics, things like that?
Almost everything's stuck to infographics. However, one of the things you can ask all the tools to do is build something in what's called Mermaid. So Mermaid is a diagramming language that uses just JSON and Markdown. And you say, render this this flow chart or this process diagram, whatever, in Mermaid, and it will spit out something that looks very, very nice. Other questions? Yeah. 10 seconds left.
We can go a minute.
There.
How do you recommend dealing with hallucinations?
I asked ChatGPT to help me find some analytics and specified only giving me real links.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me a link that didn't work. And he said, is this real? And then said, oh, I'm sorry, that's not real.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a real link. And that also wasn't a real link.
Yep.
Wow.
hallucinations occur for a few reasons. One, they don't have the knowledge, right? So all models are trained on 3 basic ethical pillars: harmless, helpful, truthful. Harmless first, like don't give out instructions to my boss. Helpful, obey the user's commands. And then truthful, provide accurate data. Truthful is a distant third in how these models are built. They are helpful after harmless. So when you ask for something that it doesn't have, it makes it up. It's like going to the library. You ask the librarian, hey, can I get the joy of cooking? And the librarian says, sure, I'll be right back. Runs back, comes back, says, here's the joy of sex. And you're like, close. Sort of, but no. That's kind of what's happening because it's trying to predict based on what data it has. So you get around hallucinations in a couple of different ways. Number one, provide the data. Or number two, use tools that are rooted in the basics. So deep research tools, go and crawl the web. Right? They are basically leveraging search technology to find that data. So I would use that instead of a regular prompt to say, find these statistics about this. Chris and I were doing one last night on foster care statistics in the state of Alabama. And I said, find me this data, use these state resources, don't use this, don't use that. And it created a 21-page report. I can then take that, put it into a ChatGPT, and now I'll say, just use this data because I already know it's good. That would be my recommendation. Hallucinations occur because the data's not there. Provide the data somehow. We had one more question. Yes.
I was wondering what this all needs for, like SaaS tools like HubSpot, for instance. You can do to all these agents that are crawling all these things and pulling all the data in, then why Pig or something like that?
Klarna, the SaaS company, just fired all the SaaS donors. Well, 127 of them. They canceled a Salesforce contract that was worth $1.5 million a month. Why? They use generative build their own CRM. Like, we don't need you anymore. We have our CRM built by us, maintained by us, because these tools can do that. So SaaS companies need to figure out what value they provide beyond software, because software is not a competitive edge. You can write your own software. I write my own software all the time now that I don't have to pay anyone else for. There's one SEO tool, it costs $4.99 a month. I'm like, I don't feel like paying that. Here's what I read out a long requirement stock. Here's what I want it to do, and it writes the thing. In fact, I have a fun video. See, where's my bytecode and videos? Okay. So I write out the requirements for what I want my code to do. And this, takes some time. And then once I have the requirements, I hand it to an AI model and I say, let's figure out what kind of prompts document you need to build. And so I have it say, I want you to ask me one question at a time. And I spent 45 minutes talking to it. And then after 45 minutes, we build a PRD, then we build a work plan, and then it writes the code. And with today's tools, I get a working app 90% of the time. I get an app that needs debugging, but is ready to go in about 2 hours the rest of the time. So for SaaS companies, what value you provide is not software. Because anybody who can dictate and say an idea out loud can build, essentially replicate for software. It is what else do you provide on top of that someone would find value. All right. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.